The hammer slipped from her numb fingers and fell into the dirt, swallowed by the dust of the open prairie. Wind swept across the land, cold and merciless, tugging at her faded black dress as she stood before the half-built shelter. The boards were warped, scavenged from a fallen barn and the ruins of a burned wagon, but they were all she had left. 3 weeks ago, this land had belonged to her husband. 3 weeks ago, she had not been alone. Now she lifted the hammer again, refusing to look back even though she could feel him there. She had sensed his presence long before she heard his boots. He had that way about him, her husband's brother. Quiet, heavy, like a storm that waited instead of announcing itself. Her husband lay buried beneath a lone cottonwood, the soil still dark and unsettled. The town had offered pity, prayers, and a few days of help, but pity never stayed long in the Wild West. A woman without a man was a problem folks preferred not to notice. So she worked. She built with broken boards and stubborn will, driving nails through splintered wood until her palms bled. Behind her, he watched. He said nothing at first, only leaned against the fence with his arms crossed, wide shoulders blocking the low sun. He looked harder than his brother had ever been, carved by years of cattle drives, gun smoke, and silence. The same eyes, though, eyes that carried loss deeper than words. "That wall won't stand," he finally said. She kept hammering. "Neither will I if I stop." The wind howled, and as if the land itself agreed with him, the frame shuddered. One weak joint gave way, then another. The boards collapsed in a dull crash, sending dust into the air. She stood frozen, then slowly lowered herself to her knees. The strength that had held her together since the funeral finally broke. Her shoulders shook as grief poured out, raw and unguarded. For a long moment he didn't move. Then he stepped forward, pulling off his coat and placing it around her shoulders. The gesture startled her more than the cold had. His hands were rough but careful, like he feared hurting something already fragile. Without a word, he picked up the fallen boards and set them aside, testing each one, discarding the weakest. "You shouldn't be doing this alone," he said quietly. "I don't have a choice," she replied, her voice thin. "You do now." He rebuilt the frame with steadier hands, reinforcing weak corners, driving nails straight and true. By sundown, the shelter stood again, crooked but stronger. When he left that night, she watched him go, unsure whether to fear his return or hope for it. He came back the next day, and the next. He brought better wood, a sack of nails, and once a pot of stew he claimed was extra. He fixed the roof, patched gaps, and chased off men who lingered too long near the property. The town noticed. Whispers followed them like dust trails, but neither spoke of it. One evening, rain slammed down without warning, thunder splitting the sky. She sat inside the shelter, holding the walls as if they might run from her. Then came a knock. He stood there soaked, lantern in hand. "Thought you might need help," he said. They sat in silence as the storm passed, lantern light flickering across rough walls and tired faces. Two people bound by the same grave, finding comfort not in words, but in presence. When winter arrived, the shelter held firm. Smoke curled from its chimney, and warmth lived inside its walls. The land no longer felt so empty. And though she never forgot her husband, she learned that survival sometimes came wrapped in unexpected mercy. She had built with broken boards. He had seen her struggle, and instead of taking what remained, he chose to help her stand.